All right, welcome to the first in what is hopefully a long series. I'm learning how to program, and I've got a buddy of mine that is helping me along the way. So we're starting off with HTML and CSS and moving into JavaScript, and hopefully eventually we're going to hit React, and I really want to get into C#, .NET, etc. But it's going to be a long journey. And I'm having a lot of fun with it. I've done a number of projects in the past. One project that I did was this one. This is the Martian Tribune. It took me a couple of months, actually, and I ended up in the end connecting with someone who was an actual software developer, and she helped me clean up the code and make it more viable in the end. Apparently I was overusing global variables. So yeah, it was really cool though, because that helped me get an understanding through programming in Lua of just the concept of if, else, else if. Had to learn how to do a for loop. That was kind of interesting. And I also was working with JSONs and how to read JSON files and bring them in and manipulate that data. So that was pretty interesting. Like I said, it was poor enough that when someone else got an opportunity, they dove straight in to help me clean things up. So that's one huge project that I undertook. This mod, it was for Surviving Mars. It's called the Martian Tribune, and it is still available for download today. If you are playing Surviving Mars, I hope that you enjoy it. I also created this. This is Heroes of the Storm drafting minigame. I made it years ago now. This was my first ever programming project. All of these icons and such I took straight from Heroes of the Storm stuff. This was meant to be a proof of concept for me, and it took months to complete. It's actually pretty cool. You've got buttons that show you each type of hero, and selecting that guy is supposed to bring up a little bit more information. These are hero details over here, and the actual hero card. I didn't quite get that far in doing so, and as you can see, it's persistent, so that's not quite done yet. You can select a map. Selecting a map for the draft here gives us an image of the map. You can zoom in on that map and it'll tell you a little bit of info about it. Oh, hey, that stuff disappeared. Excellent. Start draft here. Choose your battleground above. So we'll select a map, and with that, you pick first. Select a hero to ban. So I'll find somebody, click on them. There you go. There's the hero card. So Chen gets banned. Enemy selects a hero to ban. And AI chose Proteus, apparently. I select another hero, so on and so forth. And it actually runs through all of this. It was a lot of work, but this was done in C#, and this was my first ever project. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, and it taught me a lot about programming and just kind of just how hard it can be. So with that in mind, here I am now. This is 3 years after I picked up this project, and I want to learn programming. I want to dive in, for real. Let's do this. To that end, we are going to take a look at my current projects. These are much tamer, much more learning-oriented. This is my current set of projects. So we've got 3 right now that I'm working on. This one in front of you now, where it has home, contacts, etc. This is my big project personally. I'm trying to build a inventory tracking program using just HTML and CSS for my dad. My uncle passed away, and my dad is now caring for his estate. And I thought, hey, this would be a fun opportunity for me to learn, and at the same time, maybe provide dad with something useful. Maybe not, and that's okay either way, because he's pretty capable. I'm sure he can handle it just fine. Nonetheless, what I've got so far is just a blank slate. We've got a contact form here, and I'm working on getting this form set to save stuff. Right now it's just halting the default action in JavaScript. I'm working on the JavaScript side at the moment. And yeah, we've got goods, properties, contacts, and the home screen, which will have a to-do list and a property summary. So that's what we've got for this guy. I've got some of the code back here. One of the more interesting things about this particular project is that, nope, I want this over here and I want style on the right. Thank you very much. is the navbar. That's actually the first thing that was like semi-challenging here. So I'll show you the code for the navbar. The navbar, of course, being those buttons right up top, and as they have a different color for the one that's active, and it jots down a little bit. That's a transform each time you mouse over the thing. So that's pretty cool. I've really enjoyed that. And what that ends up being is its own nav title, or an own nav element. And inside there we have our unordered list, as is typical with nav bars. And I'm giving everything class names. So this is ul nav, right? Unordered list nav. And then it becomes inside there. Apparently, you're not supposed to have buttons alone. I didn't know this. My mentor was like, hey, Che, come on now. So we have a form, and inside that form is a button. That's all. It's a submit type button, and what it submits is this. And this is a new command in HTML5. It is form action estate management.html. So that will send you to this HTML, which is, of course, it's sitting in the folder there. Whereas the contacts one sends you to form action contacts.html or properties.html, etc. So that's really the only difference between each of them, is that we have the form, which is nav form, the button, nav button, etc., etc., etc. Looking at the CSS for these nav buttons, which naturally it did not properly display. Where is style CSS? There we go. Looking at the styling for the nav buttons, what it is basically this, but that's grayed out because we were working with the cascading portion of CSS, working out how can I use the actual pathing of the elements in order to select that object. So we nailed it down to using the class element, right? Navform dot button, or dot navform space button allowed us to go down in there just a little bit, and that's why each form is called navform. Now then, nonetheless, as we will look through this, I've got a font family, font size. I'm using rems for basically everything. Background color and color. You can see the background color is that darker color, and then the regular color is the text color is the light blue. I gave it an outline. It's a solid outline and a little bit of padding, a little bit of margin. And then I also named active as something. This active here is a class, it's a pseudo class, I believe those are called, of nav button. So if we look at nav button, we've got each of these will do when they are moused over, they do something, or not moused over, when I click on them. Once I click on it, it takes on the exact same properties as does that home button, right? So when it's active, there it is, it will reverse the coloring. So the background color, instead of the foreground being light blue, the background's light blue, and the foreground goes black, or the text color goes black, whereas the background was black before. That, and then down here, I also have button.active button. So this allows those traits to be permanently on whichever button that I claim in the nav bar to be the active button. So that's the active button class. That way it's obvious what tab they're on, basically, is the thought process behind that. So yeah, that's my nav bar. I'm kind of proud of that guy. The reason why you can see it as such, by the way, ulnav has two traits up there, and they're pretty straightforward. One is display flex, and that allows them to just flex up top. And then list style none, getting rid of all of those bullet points. So yeah, those were some of the things that I learned in this first project. It was pretty cool. I'm excited for that, to see where this goes as I get better, as I come to understand things better. The other two are homework projects that my mentor has given me. So the first was this guy. It was just a website. Take it away, wireless. So it's just a couple of paragraphs and modifying the text appropriately, making it look decent. I, of course, then threw in a couple of things because I've done some programming in the past, at least, so I feel comfortable digging around and seeing what I can make happen. So we've got like an H1 here, we've got a paragraph here. Inside this paragraph, we've got a link to something, rather, and we have some emphasized text. Note that the of is not emphasized, so I had to figure out how to emphasize this, not that, etc. And then in CSS, I defined what emphasize meant. That link, by the way, sends you not just to Google, but to a specific Google search for GPS. And then I think I have another, I do have another link in here. The icon up top, I wanted to figure out how to make it rotate, because I thought it would be cool if you mouse over it and it rotates. So I gave it a border. It's an image. I found out how to make that image move. I had to put it inside a paragraph in order to move the thing. Text align center. And that was really frustrating, not being able to move an image. Like, you'd think that would be an easy thing to do in HTML and CSS, but apparently it has to be considered text first. Go figure. Nonetheless, we got that. I got the color, border size, and I found out how to get the transform rotate going. And as you can see, that is also a link, which links straight to justplayinggoogle.com. So I thought that was fun and cool. I also managed to, I gotta make it track down a little bit. I also figured out how to make it sticky. That's what that is sticky, so that it kind of stays there as you mouse up and down. With that, there's a back to top button, which is a link with a little hash that sends you back up to main. Boom, right up to wireless here. So that was a cool thing as well. Like this isn't a big deal, right? It's just me figuring out some of the basics of HTML and CSS, really. So yeah, that one went well. The second project, which I'm turning in this week, is this, and it's just making it slightly more complex. I mean, this is a very basic website. This is slightly more complex. We have a actual image. We've got notations for each image that is involved here. Titles for the page. And then I've got two separate sections, which are supposed to be self-contained within this background. And then I want the header and the footer to be the same color. As you can see, it didn't quite work right. The bottom down there is showing some, this is overreaching its bounds. So I need to figure out why it's overreaching. The top isn't quite aligned either. So we're using float right to get this particular section out there to float on the right hand side and this on the left hand side. And as you can see, I'll show you the bottom edge of that. It floats up a little bit. There you go. Now it looks wonderful, right? Like perfectly within the borders. But as it gets smaller, it goes further and further out of the borders. They both do. And this one will randomly jump in and out of the border. So it kind of almost works. And I definitely need to figure out how to make that prettier and how to keep that within its bounds with proper margins and such. But nonetheless, this was a fun one. I was able to figure out the backgrounds for the various different sections and how to move stuff around a little bit, and got my new Navbar at the bottom. So that's week 1 and 2 of my new programming endeavors, is learning CML, CSS, and HTML, trying to make something happen for Dad, but at the same time attempting to actually learn about indenting and text sizing and attributions, alternate text as well, text coloring, background coloring, and positioning. So it's been a fun and exciting week. As much as that might not sound terribly fun and exciting, that's what happens when you're just starting the journey, right? You got to start somewhere. So thank you for watching. I appreciate you joining me on this journey, and I look forward to sharing each step along the way as we get closer and closer to doing something big and worthwhile. Have a great week. We'll see you soon.